A scrawny kid from Brooklyn becomes a patriotic superhero.
Join us as we review Captain America on RB&D Reviews.
Hey everybody, welcome to RB&D Reviews. I am Rob.
And I'm Dave.
And we are going to be reviewing Captain America, the First Avenger, which I thought was a fun action
The movie
event.
takes place during World War II. It tells the story of Steve Rogers, who has been rejected by the Army several times due to height and weight and health issues. During an attempt, Rogers meets Dr. Abraham Erskine, who is developing a project that can turn a regular basic human into a super soldier. Meanwhile, a German scientific unit, headed up by Johann Schmidt, aka Red Skull, is planning to use a mysterious cube to rule Earth.
First of all, let me start with the performances with Captain America. I thought Chris Evans was really perfectly cast in this part. I mean, he brought a sense of innocence and eager and determination to the part, and also his enemy, the Red Skull, played by Hugo Weaving. He brought a sort of great threatening presence to the movie, and I mean, everybody for the most part was very well casted, and especially Hayley Atwell, I believe, who played Agent Carter in the film. You know, I could really see a nice chemistry developing, you know, with between Captain America, Steve Rogers, and her character.
Yeah, I agree that everybody in this film was excellent, especially the guy who played Red Skull. Was
Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving. He was really great.
Yeah, like I said, you give him any part. I mean, he's played a lot of villains. He's played the one agent in the Matrix trilogy, and he also I don't know if you would call this part a villain, but he played the lead elf in the Lord of the Rings movies that Peter Jackson did. I mean, he's usually very good at everything, and oftentimes he gets typecasted as a villain. So this, to me, was not anything of a stretch for him. I think he really took it, and he really did well. And the film, to me, it also took, at least put in an effort to make us feel like we were in that time period. It takes place during World War II. A lot of times, well, recently I've seen a lot of movies that take place in the past, where it's supposed to take place and you're supposed to feel the period, but there's some sort of modern feel to the movie, like from today, like contemporary today, and it always feels like it's not quite right. Here it's just right. Like you got the newsreels, people look like they're just from the period, you know, and it does make you feel like you're from the period. And I think a lot of the times the score reflects that, because recently I saw a movie with Alec Baldwin called The Shadow. It takes place in the 1930s, but sometimes, even though it was set in the 1930s, sometimes I felt like there's some sort of modern influence in there, in the mood of the movie. This one, I didn't feel it. I think they did a good job at capturing the time period.
Yeah, some things in this movie just reminded me a lot of other movies, because it's like for instance, when they're in the laboratory and all that, that reminds me of like stuff they do in James Bond when he's trying out new gadgets and whatnot. And then some of this kind of just like reminded me of like the movie Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, but with the James Bond thing, it's not real. This movie's not really trying to copy. I mean, when they do it, they tend to go for laughs. I mean, there's a scene where they're trying out Captain America's shield, and that bit's kind of played for laughs.
Yeah,
but
that was funny.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think this is a necessarily. Yeah, there's some similar stuff. I don't necessarily think it's a copy of it. And this movie was like, I really love this movie, and this was a blessing for me, because a lot of the movies lately, like superhero movies I've been talking about lately, I always complain that there's so much, they cram so much into the plot. Like I talked about the first X-Men movie, to an extent the recent Green Lantern movie, and this movie doesn't do that. I mean, yeah, sure, there's a lot of going on, but they don't try to cram it in there all at once.
Yeah.
You know, it goes at a very nice pace. It's not too slow, it's not too fast, and it takes its time. It doesn't try to throw stuff at you.
And they kept to the background story like beautifully. They didn't like go and just start like going into other stuff and like making stuff up and all that, like a lot of the X-Men movies do.
Yeah.
The whole movie sticks to the story, even when the action sequences start.
Yeah, and speaking of action sequences were well done, and oftentimes lately I've been complaining that special effects tend to be used as a crutch. Here the special effects really complement the movie, like the music complements the movie. It doesn't try to overtake the story, the special effects do a good job here
Yeah.
at helping tell the story. You know, it doesn't say, "Oh, look at this cool explosion!" Boom, boom, boom. You know, all that stuff. You know, it really. I mean, there's some big explosions, but I think they do it in a way where it really goes with the story. And Joe Johnson, who directed this film, he's got a background in making these movies that take place in the past, action movies like The Rocketeer and last year's disaster, The Wolfman. And he really does it. He knows how to tell the story. He knows how to use the special effects to complement the story and to help tell it. And there's some great. This movie also balances serious stuff with comedy.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
like with Tommy Lee Jones, he plays a colonel that doesn't believe in Steve Rogers. He can do all this stuff. It does a good job at mixing the comedy and the drama beautifully. It doesn't get one-sided over the other. You know, it goes really, really well. And that was the problem that I thought was missing with Thor. I thought that the action scenes in Thor were good, but the comedy wasn't great. Here, they're both great.
Yeah, and this was like pretty much believable, except for maybe like one part. I mean, it was kind of like there's the one scene where he gets in the plane and he already like knows how to fly it, even though he's never had any training. I mean, that was the only thing that was like real fictional. But the rest of it, it was like a lot better than Thor.
Yeah, and like I said, mixing the comedy and drama, it reminded me of the first Iron Man. They did the same thing where they kind of do screwball comedy stuff, especially between Rogers and the Carter love interest in this movie. And the story, I don't know about you, but I thought the story could be very relatable today. Because, you know, here it's the little man versus the big man, and it's an anti-bullying story. And there's been a lot of stories going on in the news with bullying issues going on.
Yeah.
This movie, even though it's set in the past, it's kind of relatable now.
Yeah.
You know, and of course with the patriotism there's a lot of it in this movie, but oftentimes, you know, we're having some problems here with this country, and the patriotism does a good job at keeping our enthusiasm.
Right.
And
it totally stuck to the comic book. Everything that happened in it was in the comic books, and basically because this was like based on the very first issue ever made of Captain America. Because a lot of the superhero movies, they throw in just like extra stuff that's not in comic books, just for laughs or for fun.
Yeah, and I think with this movie, you don't have to be a fan. I think this movie tailors to both casual moviegoers and fans of the comic book, because oftentimes some superhero movies go for one audience over the other, and there's usually some sort of, not rivalry, but maybe one group might hate the movie more than the other group. This one, I think, Captain America comic book fans, even though I don't know everything about the comics, I think the comic book fans as well as the moviegoers are going to enjoy the movie either way.
I agree.
Yeah, I definitely say catch this movie in theaters. It's a really great movie, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
And stay after the credits if you go see it. So how would you rate this movie?
Yeah, I definitely say go see it in theaters also, and definitely stay after the credits. The credits are long, unfortunately, but it's worth it to see what's after the credits.
Yeah, because when the end of the credits happened, just about everybody that was still in the audience was hollering and applauding, so it was definitely...
Yeah, a lot of the people, they didn't know to stay after.
Yeah.
The only reason I did is because a lot of people told me when I told them I hadn't seen it yet, they're like, when you go see it, make sure you stay after the credits.
Yeah, a lot of Marvel movies have stuff at the end of the credits. Okay, so that's our review of Captain America. Please leave your comments about the movie if you've seen it or about this video. Thank you very much for watching.